Today is Cash Friday, and we consider how to be virile men, how to be men who take executive action, who act independently, who don't ask permission, who move boldly in the marketplace. Just like President Trump is moving boldly on the world stage with his missile strike against the air base in Syria, can we do likewise? Can we imitate this bold courage? Or is that redundant? Can we imitate this independent action, which, of course, is called executive action? I think there's a misplaced fear among many who think that our problem is a runaway judiciary, a judiciary which has exceeded its authority and ruled on all kinds of topics which are really state issues and not issues that can be decided and made into law effectively by the judiciary. The problem is less the judiciary, which Neil Gorsuch will be joining at its highest ranks soon. We're hearing in the news reports, but the executive. When the executive acts, things happen. And we live in an era of, you could say, monarchical privilege, of executive privilege, where the top man, whether he is cloaked in ermine and has a crown on his head or wears the best suits, as Donald Trump does, makes things happen by saying, we are going to act, we are going to be decisive. And in the bombing of the Syrian military base, that is what we have in President Trump. He's not going to dilly-dally. He's not going to draw a red line in the sand and then hesitate, as President Obama did in that foreign climb in his term. You know, he's going to see an evil and a wrong, and he's going to believe all the reports about it, all the speculation about it as if it were true, and then in a rush to judgment, which is a privilege of the executive branch, in a rush to judgment, President Trump will, and as he did, he will again, of course, he will determine our actions and strike out for virtue and honor in the firing of 58 missiles, or 59 Tomahawk missiles that struck at the infrastructure at the Sherat base north of Damascus near Hom, striking at infrastructure, aircraft, the runway itself, fuel pumps, and supply dumps, depots, and structures that serve the government of the Bashar al-Assad regime, as we call it. All foreign empires, all foreign governments are regimes. We need to know that a regime is always bad, because it implies that man, in his case, Assad won the most recent election. He's a socialist Ba'athist by 88%. We know that he's illegitimate because he's there, and his government is wicked and evil, and we're going to take him out. And I regret, really, that Donald Trump is taking the neoconservative line of thought. That's what seems to be happening among his advisors. You have many holdovers from earlier neoconservative regimes, Obama's regime and President Bush's as well. We had 8 years of one, 8 years of the other, and a continuing war overseas, all for our security. But I dare suspect that the results of our interventions overseas are the cause of Muslim anger against the West, the great Satan, that's us, and that we are making our own enemies, and we're strengthening our enemies among themselves, among their groupments and groupings. They have a way of coalescing around the assaults of the West. That would be us. This is David Tulis, and it's Cash Friday, and I don't have to tie up all the loose ends. I want you to know that, but we will tie up a few points, and rather than believing in executive government as President Trump does, and many conservatives, and in fact, really, I'm kind of surprised. I'm continually surprised at liberals, right? At Democrat liberals. Where are they? Where are Democrats? Where are liberals who are supposed to be anti-war? And they are not on the scene protesting. They're not, as far as I can tell, They're not really agitated by the executive state now in Republican hands. And and warfare. We're not the peaceniks of the 1960s and 70s. We're not many of them Democrats. We're not protesters at universities, often, licit and illicit people seeking license to do whatever they wanted to, and critical of government, critical of the machine, of the man. Were they not often peacenik Democrats in their voting, favoring socialism and the welfare state, and being against the war? Where are they now? All these lefties, all these Marxists, we don't seem to see much evidence of their objection to executive action now in the hands of a Republican president. On Cash Friday, we want to esteem something that government has given us, and we want to really appreciate the medium of exchange that we have before us. Now, I'm holding in my hands here, for my viewer on YouTube, a piece of green paper, a very fine engraving that has a very expensive piece of paper, probably costs about 12 cents to print at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing. And it has a picture on the front of General Ulysses S. Grant, became president after the war to prevent Southern independence. And on Cash Friday, what we do is go to the bank. We go to the credit union or the bank, our savings and loan, and we draw out two grants, two half C notes. A C note, of course, is a $100 bill with a picture of Franklin engraved very nicely on the front, with micro printing around it, a security strip, and many other devices devised by the best people the government can get together to design that bill and to prevent it from being counterfeited. Because you don't want to have counterfeit dollars floating around out there, because that would dilute the value of the one in your hand, right? So we want to make sure that the $100 bill in your hand, or the 250s, whichever it might be, are not easily duplicated. Though, of course, the national banking system, the Federal Reserve System, have created trillions and trillions of these digitally, right? You can't copy these with your own copier. That's why they're so secure. You can't with special inks, for example, that change color as you look at the bill in at different angles. It changes color. Those are all proofs that this is a legitimate counterfeit piece of dollar, a legitimate counterfeit dollar, not an illegitimate counterfeit dollar, which the silly buffoons who try to print Federal Reserve currency prove themselves to be. They can't really copy it very well, and they inevitably, in their illicit operations, their illicit print operations in home basements that they're caught, they're not likely to get very far. Now, we have this bill. We have Cash Friday, and on Cash Friday, we go to our bank and lender. Banks are all they're borrowers, actually. Banks are borrowers, but they borrow the money from you. You're the lender. They borrow it from you, and then they re-lend it to others through the fractional reserve process. You have that bill in your hand now. You're supposed to go and get 250s today from your bank. Draw out $100 on Cash Friday. That's what we do, and we do that as we'll explain today the rationale for Cash Friday. It is, you might say, it is a local economy step against executive government. If you draw out a $100 bill from your bank today, you are asserting, in a way, your own independence. You're asserting that, you're going to take some slight part of your destiny in your own hands. And it's a part of your destiny that you can actually feel, right? You can weigh it, you can smell it, you can crinkle it if you want to, you can write something on it if you want to, though that's illegal, and you can put it in your billfold, or put it in your envelope system. If you, my listener, are a person who's dead set against getting into debt, and you've had enough of using the credit card, in fact, you've cut your credit cards up, you and your wife, you might be on the smart side and using the envelope system. And in that system, you do not spend what you do not have. And when the month is up, you find that several envelopes have already been empty for days. One of them has been empty for 2 weeks. And you couldn't spend a penny on that category until you review your outlays for the month, conserving every buck conserved and not put into circulation because you are waiting for the day in which you'll need that money. That's the saver and the investor. My thinking is here at Nooga Radio on the David Tulis Show, and I am the host of the David Tulis Show. David Tulis himself just came over here from Panera and Panera Posse, which, by the way, is every Friday morning here in Hickson, north of the river. And some people they can't cross the river. They just can't. It's a big deal psychologically to cross over the dam and go into North Chattanooga. It's just a striking thing for people. There's an odd distinction between North River people and South River people. But whether you're North River or South River person, man, you may come to join me every Friday morning at Panera Posse, 6:30 a.m. over bagels and coffee. I drink the same coffee every time, and I order the same thing. And in fact, there are a couple of people behind the counter at Panera, which was bought just a couple days ago for $7 billion, with a big 15% premium among the shareholders. The share price was $2.75, and I think in the buyout, the Panera people got $310 per share in the proposed buyout. But anyway, at Panera, I'm there, and I always order the same thing: a blueberry bagel, well toasted with 3 butters. That's my usual ritual request. Some people actually have remembered it. I've been doing that every Friday. So do feel free to join me as we've had occasionally folks drop in, and you are also invited. And there we discuss things. And so here I am at our Nooga radio station, and at the silver mic. Now, other important hosts have golden mics. I have the common medal, and that's silver. On Cash Friday, we draw out a $100 bill, and as we're going to think about it today, that cash is virile, manly. It is bearded, right? If you have cash in your pocket, you are a bearded man, and in fact, shave. Whether you shave every day, as I do, down to the skin, or let your whiskers grow out, cash is physical. Cash satisfies. That's what I like about Cash Friday. It's a transaction that satisfies the requirements. And you, my listener, the married man, husband, lover, that is what you all are all about: satisfying the necessities. And here in Cash Friday, we are doing something of the same sort. We're satisfying a manly need. And if we go always with digits, think about it. If we're always going with digits, there is that long trail of records, and it's all in public, right? There's nothing private about that. It's a public transaction, whereas with cash is intimate potentially. Cash is private, and it is a way of defining the executive state, which always ordains things, as President Trump ordains. Now, it's very possible that President Trump and is being misled. He's a man who is, while he seemed to be a non-interventionist in the campaign, and even he was accused of being an isolationist. That was a grave concern among the talking heads and the people over at Foreign Affairs. They thought he was an isolationist. He's really not. I think he has a global perspective, and we remain, even though we are staggered with nearly $20 trillion in official treasury debt, and probably $60 trillion in overall by agreement, political promise, and so on. He is a man who does believe in decisive action, and that's what happened with the 59 Tomahawk missiles at Sherat Air Base in Syria. But it's possible that he's being rushed to judgment. Where just by the way, now this is not a local economy matter, and I admit that, and I generally stay away from things of this kind, but I bring them up solely to make you question things that are domestic and question things here in Hamilton County that seem to be true, that appear to be for our benefit. Look at federal funding of streetscapes, the federal funding of public schools, Hamilton County schools, federal funding of city programs, federal funding of our tourism industry, and you name it. There is a grant that is being drawn down quietly in the background by some very well-paid person in a suit earning $200,000 as Bob Doak is doing. But in the federal benefits are astounding and widespread. I raised this question about Syria just so you, with Cy Hirsch, just so you will question the narrative as it applies here, because somehow we think that if the federal government is here, it's good. Our federal government is good. If it's here, it's good. If it's in Washington, well, it's bad. How does it change its colors like that? How does that work? How is it that federal government here, and with its outlays here, its commands here, its Justice Department here, it's Solomon building courts here, it's Solomon building FBI office and SEC office and all the other offices here are good, and yet in Washington maybe not so good, and maybe overseas maybe not so good either. But there's a question that Cy Hirsch and others are raising. Robert Parry, for example, whose work appears at what's the website, at globalresearch.ca, the media platform of Professor Chosudowski, the professor emeritus at University of Ottawa, a dissenter of the narrative, right? A man who dissents with many of his writers from the narrative. And his piece today asks this, that why is it that we're blaming Assad for a gas attack when the Americans, the pentagram itself, trained al-Qaeda rebels in, at the very least, the safe storage and movement of chemical weapons? It's a remarkable story. There's a site from the Mail, the English paper, the Mail Online, and the headline there is U.S.-backed plan to launch chemical weapon attack on Syria and blame it on Assad's regime. That is a story that was removed from that website a little bit later. CNN in 2012 reported that the U.S. is helping to underwrite Syrian rebel training on securing chemical weapons. Now, securing, I think, is meant to be not the obtaining of them, but the having of them, the management of them, the storage of them until they're obviously until they're used. Now, the Americans would not train Syrian rebels who are active Muslims, faithful Muslims who bow down properly to Mecca worship time. Not train them how to use the weapons, just to manage them and to store them safely. This was December 9, 2012. The U.S. and European allies are using defense contractors to train Syrian rebels on how to secure chemical weapons stockpiles in Syria, a senior U.S. official and several senior diplomats told CNN today. Why is that? How does that work? We haven't just been giving them rocket launchers and M4 automatic rifles and the like, and security equipment and so on. Weapons that are transferred here and there, and many of them, no doubt, held lovingly and firmly by bearded men who are killers of Christians, right? How does that work? Well, Robert Parry says there's a rush to judgment, and I think he's probably right, given the way of executive government here in Hamilton County. And my doubts about the benefit, the munificence, if you will, the munificence of national government here in Hamilton County and Chattanooga, my doubts about that lead me to raise doubts about one more foreign war in which our own senators, Corker and Alexander, have, and even our Representative Fleischman, have not had any say on, right? In Congress, is not Congress supposed to approve of war? Is it, or is war just a monarchical executive action by a man, Donald Trump, who is serving the American interest as we are supposed to believe? And Trump in his launching of these missiles says, "We ask for God's wisdom as we face the challenge of a very troubled world. We pray for the lives of the wounded and for the souls of those who passed." Well, that's a little bit of Roman Catholicism there, and I thought he was a Presbyterian. Presbyterians don't pray for the souls of the dead because they are dead. You do not pray for the dead as Rome teaches. Now, we have seasoned propagandists. This is David Tulis, and caller, you're live on the air. You've got just half a minute. What's on your mind?
Okay, quickly. This is not an act of war. They agreed to dispense of their chemical weapons by agreement with the UN. They violated that agreement. Not only did they violate it, they killed a bunch of innocent people. I'm surprised it was only 59 cruise missiles. I'd have destroyed every one of their airfields. And my hat's off to President Trump for doing the moral correct thing.
Well, that was Mike, who is chastising me from my local economy perspective on this. My doubts about the absorption of the neoconservative narrative by the president, who we thought was not a neocon. We thought he favored states' rights. He favored lawful government. But, well, disappointed once more. Local economy, free markets, disappointed once again. This is David Tulis.
Hot News Talk 1240. AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. Following the launch of 59 cruise missiles at a Syrian government-controlled airbase, former Mayor of Chattanooga Bob Corker releasing a statement saying in part this: I applaud President Trump for taking decisive action following the latest chemical weapons attack. It's critical that Assad knows he will no longer enjoy impunity for his horrific crimes against his own citizens. On the Walnut Street Bridge, a man playing guitar says he was assaulted when a man took a $20 bill out of his busking jar. The man says he was playing his guitar while a black male walked up to him, placed $1 in his jar, but then took $20. When the man confronted him about it, he was shoved. His girlfriend was also shoved, and the man ran away. Police have scoured the area, but have not found him yet. A juvenile court administrator of 5 years has been asked to step down by Judge Rob Filia following a domestic assault charge against him. Antonio Petty is claimed to have assaulted his girlfriend at a tire center at Walmart following an altercation with another woman, also claiming to be his girlfriend. The alleged victim in the domestic assault case went to Park Ridge Medical Center for a sprained arm.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Need windows? Hey folks, do you need new windows? Good news. Window Depot of Chattanooga has a great special going on right now. 10 high-quality, energy-efficient double-hung vinyl windows installed for only $29.90. That's right, 10 double-hung vinyl windows, only $2,990. And yes, they qualify for the TVA rebates. Call 894-0011. Window Depot of Chattanooga today, located at 5950 Shalford Road. Call 894-0011 today.
Jim and the folks at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating know color. They can help you find a cheerful hue for the girls' room, a calming neutral for the kitchen. They can even help you find the right stain and seal for that faded back deck. Jennifer, the interior designer at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating, is ready to listen and provide expert advice. Sure, she can help you find the perfect color for your space, adding beauty and value to your home, but she can also help you plan your project so that you get exactly what you need on your first trip without wasting time or money. Tom, the products expert at Chattanooga Paint and Decorating, knows coatings. He can teach you how to protect your home, your biggest investment. Ready to get started? Visit online at ChattanoogaPaint.com for pro tips and inspiration, or stop by the showroom today, 5529 Hickson Pike. That's 5529 Hickson Pike, across from the Valvoline. Ask for Jim. Tell them David sent you.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Are you a plumber looking to improve your career? Ray's Plumbing is looking for you. If you can pass a drug test, have a driver's license, are experienced, and are hardworking, call Ray, 421-6341. 421-6341. 421-6341.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341. 421-6341.
Final expenses, funeral cost, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855-8484. Call today, 423-855-8484.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us, Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me, Action Rentals.
After this chilly start, expect lots of sunshine for your Friday. Still on the breezy side, highs later on, upper 50s to near 60. Tonight, clear, cold with a frost likely, lows mid and upper 30s. The weekend, though, looking great. Lots of sun, warmer, highs upper 60s Saturday, upper 70s Sunday. Spring has sprung, so check out Glass Farm Nursery, your tree and shrub replacement headquarters. Glass Farm will bring life back to your lawn and garden. Open daily, closed Sundays. Glass Farm, Highway 11, 4 miles south of Trenton. And I'm Swarm Sheen 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You know, the market is at its peak when the excesses of agricultural industry or the industrial agricultural world reach the following point, as reported by NBC News. And that is burgers and chickens on your plate, but they have not come from animals. They've come from the lab, where cells are used to replicate themselves into meat. Raising animals for consumption, the story says, may soon become obsolete. So far, several teams of scientists have shown that it's possible to produce animal-free beef, chicken, turkey, and fish. There's a startup company called Memphis Meats. Tasters described the chicken as chicken, but just a little spongier. Meat is essentially muscle tissue, so if it grows naturally from just a few cells into a thick chunk, why can't the same process happen in the lab? The story says. Well, that seems to me wonderfully advanced, just amazingly advanced, and beyond where we are now. And that there's something. Well, it just seems that we don't know where the limits are. We don't know where the limits are. We've even read stories of the creation of half human animals, beings that are partly human and partly animal, and they're conceived in the lab where the genes are recombined to create new monsters. I was going to say versus old monsters, but essentially just monsters, beings that are monstrosities. And how does God look upon that kind of experimentation that doesn't recognize the role of creator at all and our own place as creatures? We're creatures, and we're bound by law. We're bound by God's law and his restraints upon our liberty, right? In the Garden of Eden, there was liberty everywhere. Everywhere Adam and Eve, when she came from his rib, went, there was a yes. Everywhere was yes, 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 yes. Everywhere you could look, on every horizon, but there was one place where there was a no. One tree that was beautiful to behold, and it was the no. On this tree, no, you can't touch it, and you cannot eat from it. And the temptation of the serpent, Satan, was that indeed that tree with the no on it was in fact the best tree. and to have knowledge of good and evil, to know what God knows, and to be like God. Eve and Adam had to let Eve take from it and to have her serve him, which he did in lassitude and carelessness, and which he did bite after her and take it. And so mankind fell into sin. And so we're under this grave judgment that is on us today. This is David Tulis, and we are at Nooga Radio. And on my show, we have a very precise tomahawk missile-like approach to key topics. The topics are local economy and the free market. And the slogan here on Cash Friday today, where we draw out $100 in cash from our lender, either a single note with Ben Franklin on it or two notes with Honorable Ulysses S. Grant on it. On Cash Friday today, we think about our slogan, which is love your neighbor and buy local. The Cheeseburger building, half its facade, its front falling apart, is undergoing a demolition, very rapid demolition. A permit has been pulled from that, according to a TV report, and the thing is going to be coming down. The owner has sued the renter. I understand the owner is a very difficult man to get along with. And the renter of the restaurateur, yes, he owes me $1 million because he did not keep this structure in proper form. He did not keep the bricks in order, and the place was ordered vacated and called a danger when it started shifting and the walls started moving and cracking. And the owner of the property is blaming the man behind the hamburger stove as being the party responsible for the building's front collapsing. And in God's good providence, no one was hurt the other day when that came down. There's a bill in the legislature to further reduce the state's claim upon the right to bear arms. The idea of the free citizenry, of course, entails that every man is presumably honorable and good, has a weapon for the defense of his property, his person, and the lives of innocent women and children. Women and children are always innocent in this masculine framework. And the provision or the proposal would reduce the penalties for carrying a weapon, violating the intent to go armed statute, which was an anti-Negro law. I say that because when it was passed, blacks were called Negroes. And that was by the Democratic Party. White establishment in the state of Tennessee didn't want black people to have weapons, and so the intent to go armed law was passed, and it is effective ban on all weapons, giving the state an arbitrary claim upon that activity of carrying a handgun, let's say a 45 caliber or a 38 revolver, 4-inch barrel revolver under your jacket or on your belt. Forbidden, absolutely forbidden, with some exceptions, and the exceptions, of course, are there. And the permit that you can get from the state of Tennessee is an exception that is a defense against the charge of having a weapon on your person with the intent to go armed. That's a wicked law. It is a wicked, wicked, wicked law, a racist law, anti-black law that Republicans and Democrats in our state continue to accept. They continue to accept it as normal and part of public safety. But the provision in the legislature right now would reduce the penalties for carrying a handgun, say, without the proper permit that the well-to-do and the middle class can afford with time and money, and the poor cannot. Right? Poor people are always charged with this crime because they don't have time and means to go through the rigmarole of exercising their rights, converted by their application and payment into a privilege. And the bill says no jail for the accused, at the most a misdemeanor charge, a $100 fine, first offense, $200 fine in the second offense. The rules against searches and seizures, according to David Rabin, the noted attorney in Nashville, are being loosened. The State versus Tuttle decision, which runs out about 45 pages. I looked at it this morning. I don't think that I could do it justice. So let me just tell you what the Tennessean at Stacey Backinger's byline is reporting. And it was Wednesday that this opinion came down from the Tennessee Supreme Court, and it overturned the prior standard for searches, and the new standard is called the totality of circumstances standard. The earlier precedent had required police to meet a two-pronged test, according to the USA Today network, that were a test that helped establish the veracity of the confidential informant and whether he's true. Confidential informants are notoriously inaccurate, and they're men of often evil and suspect motive. The story quotes part of the ruling. The totality of circumstances analysis is much more consistent with the non-technical common sense approach courts already apply when determining whether probable cause exists. This was written by, not sure now, one of the women, Cornelia Clark, is the author of the opinion. Now, David Rabin, the attorney who's noted for his law books, he has law books on procedure, criminal procedure, civil procedure. I suggest if you're ever involved in a court case that you give some time to David Rabin. You can find copies at the UTC library. I've looked through them several times. The new case, he says, allows the police greater opportunity, he says, to get search warrants on the strength of the word of criminal informants whose veracity is always suspect. The Supreme Court's decision signals yet another modification of the court's earlier rulings, which provided greater protection to citizens under the Tennessee Constitution. But the court says that most other states use the totality of circumstances standard, and this case involved a 2012 Murray County search in which there was $1 million guns and drugs and $1 million in cash forfeited by Jerry Tuttle. The Tuttle case is state of Tennessee versus Tuttle. Now, there's also some doings in the General Assembly that look at the prospect of boys and girls in Chattanooga and Hamilton County being born or being destroyed. Every year, women in the county go out of the city limits, out of the county limits even, to destroy their daughters. Some destroy sons, going to Knoxville, Nashville, Tri-Cities, and Atlanta. They go there to a doctor called the abortion doctor. Now, he in AP style and in Times Free Press style, which doesn't want there to be a shadow of disrespect on titles that are of our most estimable medical professionals, refers to them as abortion doctors, right? These are physicians or abortion doctors, not abortionists. Abortionist just sounds judgmental, so I have to call him that. It's judgmental. Now, May Beavers is probably one of the best legislators in the General Assembly, but of our debate, right? The decline of rhetoric, the decline of the quality of argument today has declined greatly, and though she's a very fine senator, is evidence of that. And the question is, if we properly license the killing of these boys and girls, and make sure that licensed people and licensed places are involved in their destruction, then the destruction can go ahead. Now, the question is, the debate has arisen between her legislation and Herbert Slatery, called the top law enforcer in Tennessee. He's the state's attorney, the attorney general. He has an opinion that came out on the 31st of March, about a week ago, and a question asking about bills before the General Assembly. And he says that they're suspect and they don't meet constitutional muster. One of them is called the Tennessee Infants Protection Act. And the question is about how babies can be destroyed. Girls and boys conceived in the area here, in our listening area, maybe in the same part of town where you, my listener, have your office, or where you, my listener, are traveling to your clients, right? You're traveling to your clients right now. Do drive safely, and right near you, there's a neighborhood, and in that neighborhood is a woman bearing a girl not yet born, obviously. The 20-week abortion ban proposed by Senator Beavers and co-sponsored by a dozen Republicans in the House would require any abortion after 3 months and before 20 weeks be performed in a licensed hospital by a licensed physician. Okay, so that's important. If the baby is to be destroyed, as we step toward pro-life position, we step toward it slowly, bit by bit, and hopefully we'll respect and honor God and eventually save lives. The bill would also prohibit abortions after 20 weeks, with the exception of when a physician certifies the abortion is necessary to preserve the life or health of the mother. Of course, that's a huge exception. The health of the mother really can be anything. It can be mental health, and a woman who intend on destroying her daughter, to bear that child, to have that child in her arms, and to breastfeed that child, or to fuss about Simlac, right? These are troubles. These are mentally disturbing prospects, and so for her mental health, the doctor can agree that yes, that's the cause of my consenting and recommending abortion. The 20-week ban runs afoul of the High Court's ruling, the U.S. Supreme Court's ruling that prohibits abortion bans before viability of the baby. Of course, the stories don't say baby; they refer to fetus. Now, in one part of the discussion of Herbert Slattery's four-page opinion, his four-page analysis of the law, is a discussion about intent. And I think that's very interesting. And I want to get to this, I think, first, just in case I run out of time. And it's the question of intent. And there are two kinds of laws. One is your regular law based on common law principles of intent. And then there's another kind called strict liability. And strict liability laws are becoming more and more frequent. And they're so common and so vicious that there have been in the past 3 or 4 years calls for reform in the Congress, because environmental rules, for example, an innocent school janitor can end up having to go to jail because he disposed of some excess flooding water in a classroom in an improper channel. And it wasn't necessary that he intended to violate any law, but he did that, and that was under a strict liability standard. The doing it is the crime, and there's no need to prove intent. So you see how intent is important. That's the difference between in the Bible between murder and manslaughter. Manslaughter is an accident. The head of the axe falls off the handle. Murder and kills the other man working there in the forest. Murder is when there's intent to kill that man's life, and the axe is used to destroy him, and that of course is intent. And that's what the jury and the judge have to determine: was it an accident or was it intentional? Now, in this opinion, Mr. Slattery says that statutes imposing criminal liability without the scienter requirement, that is to say, without the defendant having some degree of guilty knowledge or mental culpability. Those are the terms: guilty knowledge, mental culpability. It's also called scienter. If you don't have scienter or mental culpability, you've got a problem, right? And the defendant has a problem. These are generally disfavored, he says, and then he cites a case from 1994, U.S. case. The absence of a scienter requirement is little more than a trap for those who act in good faith. Now, here he's trying to find a way to make it that the doctor who allows the killing of a baby does not have to face an absolute statute, right? He wants him to be able to have intent, to show intent. So the doctor has to be able to show, if he's ever accused under the statute, of showing that he didn't intend to do something wrong, but he was acting in good faith. So the good faith is a defense, but if you have a strict liability statute, as this one seems to be framed, there's no escape. He says the perils of strict criminal liability are particularly acute here because of the uncertainty of the viability determination itself. In other words, if the baby can be viable under the law, then he can't be destroyed, right? The girl cannot be killed in utero if she's viable. So what's viable? See, that's a medical determination. As the record in this case indicates, a physician, he says, determines whether or not a fetus, that's baby, is viable after considering a number of variables. Because of the number and the impression of these variables, the probability of any particular fetus's obtaining meaningful life outside the womb can be determined only with difficulty. Here it's getting really slippery. In the face of these uncertainties, it is not unlikely, he says, that experts will disagree. The prospect of such disagreement in conjunction with a statute imposing strict civil and criminal liability for an erroneous determination of viability would have a profound chilling effect on the willingness of physicians to perform abortions. In other words, if there's a strict liability statute and the baby is destroyed when the baby could have been viable, then there will be a chilling effect. In other words, doctors will not recommend abortion if they think that their head could be had, right? They won't do it. But he says a scienter requirement is lacking when, as in Ohio's statute and in the proposed new Tennessee Act, the physician is subject to criminal sanctions for a decision that, by definition, based not on guilty knowledge or even recklessness, but on the physician's good faith medical judgment. In other words, without a scienter requirement, just bear with me here, okay? In other words, he says, without a scienter requirement, such statutes impermissibly subject a physician to criminal liability, even though he was acting in good faith in determining whether a medical emergency or medical necessity exists. So in other words, this kind of allows an easier destruction of the child because the physician is not personally liable. Now, you know, these are important questions, and I think you need to know about this in guilty intent rule. And think about that. If you're ever accused of something, you know, you want to call Clay Whitaker at McCoon Law to help you, but he's a great defense attorney, and probably so is Jerry Summers here in Chattanooga. But you need to emphasize, look, in getting your defense together, where's the intent? The other side, the state has to show intent. It has to show scienter. Keep that name in mind. It has to show criminal mental culpability, and it probably can't. Well, I think there's a better solution than legislation like this. And you know what it is? It's abolition. There should be an effort starting here in Chattanooga for abolition. That is to say, total abolition. Not licensing the doctor, not necessarily requiring licensing of the facility in which the girl is destroyed, but abolition, absolute abolition. Why are we playing around with these children? Why are we dickering over liability and mental states of doctors? You know, these issues in themselves are important, but the larger picture, if we pull back just a little bit and see it in the larger picture is that the killing of a baby girl is simply murder. It's simply murder. Where are our feminists? Where are they decrying this process of killing these girls? Where are they? This is David Tulis, and I'm wondering, but I've got some messages for you to hear. Hang on.
Hot News Talk 1240.
iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com, Chattanooga's premier house buyer. Do you have a house you need to sell fast? We are buying. Call us today. We are local folks. We will buy your house as is, no repairs needed. We will give you a cash offer and close on the day of your choice. Call us right now, 423-834-7321. Need to sell a house fast? We are buying. Are you experiencing one of these situations? Inherited a house you have no need for? Behind on your property taxes? Nightmare tenants making your life miserable? Too many repairs needed and don't have a desire to fix? Behind on payments and facing foreclosure? Recently divorced and need a way out of the house? Never really wanted to be a landlord and just want to cash out? Trying to relocate and need to sell your house? Do you need to sell a house fast? We are buying. No fees, no hassles, no repair costs. Close on the day of your choice. Our process is simple. Call us today. We inspect your property right away. We make you a fair cash offer. We close on the day of your choice. Call us today, 423-834-7321. Visit our website, iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com. Call us today, 423-834-7321. iBuyChattanoogaHouses.com.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us, Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me, Action Rentals.
If I'm the city's most intelligent man, it's because I take 2 shots of Mind Enhancement Complex every day. Nature's Finest keeps me stocked with my mainstay, Formula 4. That's where I start. Formula 4. Industrial farming, soil depletion, mineral empty foods. I just say no. Ask about supplements, health, stamina, circulation, heart, prostate under control. Get the Nooga Radio David Tulis freebie. Save $2 on every 5, 20% off. Nooga Radio, the highway, nature's finest.
I have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Here comes the bride, here comes the bride. She's walking down the street.
And she's wearing a stunning diamond ring that's a fraction of the cost that her man would have paid at one of those overpriced mall jewelry stores. Rick Davis has a plethora on quality diamonds and gold rings, and he wants to pass the savings on to you. Did I say plethora? How about overabundance? That's right, an overabundance of gold and diamonds. So before you decide to get crazy and pay full retail on an overpriced piece of jewelry from one of those cookie-cutter mall jewelry stores, come on out and see Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds. Top quality gold and diamonds at a fraction of the cost. Intermarital bliss with an engagement and wedding ring from Rick Davis. Hey, he'll also buy your gold and diamonds with cash, and more cash. Rick Davis Gold and Diamonds, Brainerd Road, Chattanooga. And there goes another happy bride.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson, Crystal Brook, Appleton. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929.
Truex Jr. is off the pace and he is headed to the pit lane. Elliott Cowherd around the outside. Michael McDowell pops a right front tire. Here's Martin Truex to the bottom. Blaney blocked him off too. Meanwhile, Chase Elliott went 4 wide on the back straightaway. They're side by side for the lead.
Hear it live on Chattanooga's official NASCAR radio station.
Fox News Talk 1240.
The voice of NASCAR.
Charge! Get back there, you dang Yankee! Great horny toads, I'm up north. Gotta burn my boots, they touched Yankee soil. Lay down your arms and step forward, Yankee!
What's the hassle, schmassel?
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Saudi Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Frank Sedapani. We have breaking news from Stockholm, Sweden about another apparent terrorist attack involving a truck. Media reports say the truck crashed into a department store in the heart of the city, killing 3 people. One report says hundreds of bystanders fled in panic. Another talks about shots being fired. Reporter James Savage describes the chaotic scene.
There were people running in large numbers away from the scene. It was a busy time on this shopping street just as people were getting ready for the weekend. People in the government offices have been told to stay inside the building. Everyone else is being told to stay away from the area.
Information is sketchy at this point, but officials are treating the incident as a possible terrorist attack. TV pictures showed smoke coming from that department store. In Washington, Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi is asking Speaker Paul Ryan to call the House back into session to debate the authorization of military force in Syria. Pelosi says one airstrike will not end the bloodshed there. The target of the airstrike last night was the Syrian base used to launch the chemical weapons attack this week that killed scores of civilians. CBS News correspondent Cammie McCormick.
The U.S. launched 59 cruise missiles overnight in the first direct attack against Syrian President Assad's forces. The Tomahawk missiles hit an airbase where Syrian aircraft often take off to bomb targets in northern and central Syria. U.S. officials say the Syrians did not scramble any planes in time to get away from the strikes. The missiles were fired from 2 U.S. Navy ships in the eastern Mediterranean.
We get Russian reaction to the missile strike from reporter Alec Lewin in Moscow via Skype.
Russia has sent a frigate to join its battle group off the shores of Syria. That ship is armed with Russia's latest and most modern cruise missile.
Russia requested an emergency UN Security Council meeting. CBS's Stephen Portnoy tells us the missile strike came in the midst of the president's summit with China's leader.
Xi Jinping left Mar-a-Lago just minutes before word of the strike on Syria. It's not clear whether the president told his Chinese counterpart he planned to act. The two will hold a series of meetings today, including a working lunch. Last night, Mr. Trump joked he'd gotten nothing in their first round of talks. The Xinhua news agency reports the president has accepted an invitation to visit China later this year.
The Labor Department says the unemployment rate fell to a 10-year low in March, 4.5%, but employers added only 98,000 new jobs. Economist Gus Fauché.
Job growth was a little bit weak, although I think it will bounce back. We had 0.2 of an increase in average hourly earnings, so raises continue to rise. That's good news for consumer spending.
Analysts say the weather may have skewed the job numbers higher in February and lower last month. Honda is recalling 37,000 vehicles to check if replacement airbags contain recalled Takata inflators that may have been installed before a massive Takata recall last year. The Dow is down 41. This is CBS News.
It's called the Deep State. Barack Obama's most loyal aides still hold office, and they want to stop President Trump. Deep State was first revealed in the runaway New York Times bestseller, Big Agenda. David Horowitz's Big Agenda exposes Obama's government in exile and his shocking plan. Newsmax, Lou Dobbs, and Coulter all say you must read Big Agenda at bookstores everywhere, or check out our free offer. Call 800-NEWSMAX, 800-NEWSMAX, or go to bigagenda411.com. That's bigagenda411.com.
Listen up. You've got to hear this. People are getting cash back every time they shop. Yes, cash right in their pockets for buying groceries, clothing, and even beer and wine. $5, $10, $20 a shopping trip. It's from an app called Ibotta, I-B-O-T-T-A. Download the free Ibotta app now, and Ibotta will give you $10 just for trying it. What are you waiting for? I-B-O-T-T-A. I-B-O-T-T-A. You've gotta Ibotta.
The Transportation Security Administration is looking for a missing dog. It's the service dog that agents in Orlando allowed to get away. CBS News correspondent Peter King tells us what happened.
The dog's owner says TSA agents asked her to remove the vest and leash for the dog so they could be x-rayed. The dog, a 3-year-old pit bull named Scarlet, jumped from the woman's arms and ran off. TSA says the agent made a mistake. The dog should have been allowed through with its vest, and the agent is being retrained. Searchers are looking for Scarlet in and around the airport. Peter King, CBS News, Orlando.
A report out today suggests the job prospects are looking up. 45% of the employers in the latest Career Builder survey said they expect to hire permanent full-time workers between now and the end of June. Well, that's a 34% increase from last year and the highest percentage from any second quarter in 10 years. Frank Sedapani, CBS.
AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. Following the launch of 59 cruise missiles at a Syrian government-controlled airbase, former mayor of Chattanooga Bob Corker releasing a statement saying in part this: I applaud President Trump for taking decisive action following the latest chemical weapons attack. It's critical that Assad knows he will no longer enjoy impunity for his horrific crimes against his own citizens. On the Walnut Street Bridge, a man playing guitar says he was assaulted when a man took a $20 bill out of his busking jar. The man says he was playing his guitar while a black male walked up to him, placed $1 in his jar, but then took $20. When the man confronted him about it, he was shoved. His girlfriend was also shoved, and the man ran away. Police have scoured the area but have not found him yet. A juvenile court administrator of 5 years has been asked to step down by Judge Rob Filia following a domestic assault charge against him. Antonio Petty is claimed to have assaulted his girlfriend at a tire center at Walmart following an altercation with another woman, also claiming to be his girlfriend. The alleged victim in the domestic assault case went to Park Ridge Medical Center for a sprained arm.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
After this chilly start, expect lots of sunshine for your Friday. Still on the breezy side, highs later on, upper 50s to near 60. Tonight, clear, cold with a frost likely, lows mid and upper 30s. The weekend, though, looking great. Lots of sun, warmer, highs upper 60s Saturday, upper 70s Sunday. Spring has sprung, so check out Glass Farm Nursery, your tree and shrub replacement headquarters. Glass Farm will bring life back to your lawn and garden. Open daily, closed Sundays. Glass Farm, Highway 11, 4 miles south of Trenton. And I'm Sports 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Ward. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's David Tulis.
As the editor, David Tulis worries even about small words that have two letters. There's a misspelled word, and it's spelled this way, O-N, in most publications, in the hearts of most people. I say that on is not the right word, that the right word really needs to be no. And so in saying no, we today, the first Friday of the month, we celebrate Cash Friday, where you and I together go to our lender, our bank or our credit union, which are really our borrowers. They borrow from us, and draw out a $100 bill, a Ben Franklin, a C note as it's called, C from French for cent, C-E-N-T, which is 100 in French. We get out a C note and we exercise a bit of independence. Now, celebrating with me here today is Dr. Paul Hein, a retired ophthalmologist living in the St. Louis area, a man who sees things with ocular clarity, great clarity, and has put many of his observations about our economy into a wonderful little volume that came out in the 1980s, published here in Tennessee, no less. All work and no pay. A real eye-opening story, eye-opening book, one that should be on your teenager's reading list. If you're in public school, you are going to have to supplement the trivia that he gets from the factory school with some real literature, some real economics. And so All Work and No Pay is a key and slim volume that you want to assign. Dr. Hein, how would you, if you were going to celebrate Cash Friday here in Chattanooga and you were here in town, why would you be celebrating with me, drawing out a $100 bill? What would be the point of it? What benefit would come to you, do you suppose?
Well, there's always the benefit of having cash. If you have cash, you can deal freely with other people, and you don't leave any kind of a record behind, which is probably desirable. You know, nowadays there's a big concern about privacy and the lack of it, with the government able to record everything you see and hear and type on your computer and so forth. So privacy is disappearing. But if you have a $10 bill, or even better, a $100 bill in your wallet, you can deal with other people privately, which is probably the best way to do it. And besides, it's making a symbolic gesture, you know, because when you withdraw a $100 bill from the bank, you withdraw what they would use as backing for a loaning, say, of $1,000. And anything you can do to let the banking system know that you're on to them is probably a good idea. But in the long run, since the bank finances the government and probably is in a sense is the invisible government, you're going to have a hard time changing things. But I think it's a good idea for your own personal freedom to withdraw this $100 bill, as you say. It's a symbolic gesture and a good one. So I would encourage your listeners to do it.
So we don't have to leave the tapeworm economy entirely. We can go back on Saturday into buying soft drinks and gas refills on the mortgage system. We don't have to commit to cash every day, just one day, Dr. Hein.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's you could hardly withdraw enough cash that you would never need to write a check. For one thing, some of your checks are going out of town and you don't have to drive there and give them the cash, or it's a little risky to mail it. So yeah, we can't get away from things like credit cards. The problem is that those things are essentially, if you want to look at it this way, dishonest. They're transferring to someone that you owe money to something that isn't really money and that entitles them to nothing whatever from the people who issue the device, namely the Federal Reserve Bank, or the bank, it's your local bank, if you're just writing out a check, because that's not Federal Reserve notes, that's just arithmetic money, numbers in the ledger. And to pay for something with nothing is really dishonest, except you might justify it by saying that they can take this nothing and spend it on something themselves. So it's a question of everybody
Well, what do you mean? What do you mean, Dr. Hein, when you say that the note doesn't create an obligation on the part of the person who printed it? What do you mean by that?
Well, a note is an IOU. You have a note which states, if it's a valid note, what is to be paid to whom, where, and when. For instance, paper money in the United States at one time declared that the holder of the note could take it to the bank and get gold for it. The gold was the money. The note wasn't the money. The note was to your hat, as a hat check is to your hat. It's just a claim check. So by eliminating the hat, you have to wear the claim check on your head, which is kind of silly. And so the paper money is just a dishonest means of obtaining other people's property without giving anything in return. This is what I say. Everybody's robbing everybody else.
So what you're saying is that if my listener has a $100 bill, he's hoping, or maybe $100,000 in cash, he's hoping that he won't be the last person stuck with that paper before it becomes absolutely worthless. He's hoping in spending it that the next person will accept what he's got, and hope that person, of course, will accept it from him on the trust that he can spend it to before it declines in value or becomes worthless. Is that the game?
Right. I mean, if you have an IOU from somebody and you take it to them and say, okay, I need the money, redeem your IOU, they will either have to redeem it or reveal themselves as being dishonest or at least incompetent. If you take your Federal Reserve IOU to the bank and say, here I am with my $100 bill and I want the $100, the clerk, I'm sure, won't know what you're talking about. And most of them are far too young to remember when money was a tangible substance. There was an attorney named Mobley Milam many years ago who filed a lawsuit because he couldn't get the money from the bank, and the judge dismissed his suit with ridicule. So you might as well forget about ever getting anything for your money. You're paid for your services with an IOU, and that IOU is never going to be redeemed. And an IOU that's worthless is a criminal offense. I mean, if you issue an IOU that you have no intention of honoring, you're a criminal. But not if you're the Federal Reserve, because they have exempted themselves. Their money has been declared a legal tender by the government, which is convenient for the government because the government borrows from the Federal Reserve without ever intending to pay it back. And so the whole system works out very well for them. But you can see the economic consequences of this thing in the economy with businesses closing and shuttering and businesses going abroad and so forth. So I think maybe disaster is right around the corner.
Well, let me defend the government here, Dr. Hein. The government's papers issued by the Federal Reserve System do have some words on the front that warn the holder of the note, the person who went to the bank to get that note in cash, that it really has its promises are very, very limited. Would you not say that the promise, the writings on these green rectangles are in a way honest, Dr. Hein?
Well, on a modern Federal Reserve note, I don't know of any promise of any sort that's on there, except that the word note implies that there is an obligation. But no, there's no promise. At one time, there was a promise, even if it was only a promise to redeem the note with other notes or something, so-called lawful money. But no, there's no promise of any kind on the Federal Reserve note nowadays. So fortunately, nobody looks for it. Nobody cares about it because they know they can go to the grocery store and get some milk or butter for it. But ultimately, the system is going to collapse.
When the Federal Reserve System was first created, Dr. Hein, we're talking with this is David Tulis. We're talking with Dr. Paul Hein, the author of a great book called All Work and No Pay, which I highly recommend. Dr. Hein, in the Fed note of 1914, when the Fed was created, it says the writing says Federal Reserve note: the United States of America will pay to the bearer on demand $100. And on the back, it says this note is receivable by all national and member banks and Federal Reserve banks. And for all taxes and customs and other public dues, it is redeemable in gold on demand at the Treasury. What does that mean? Also for gold on demand, also lawful money. And what is lawful money? What's that about?
Yeah, that's a kind of a weasel term, isn't it? I'm not sure what they meant in those days by lawful money, but I think what they're preparing you for is the idea that eventually the note itself will become the money. The promise will become its own fulfillment. They had to make them redeemable when they first started the system back in 1914.
To get it going.
Nobody would have, it would have been an uproar if they had just issued these notes without any promise of redemption. But I think what they had in mind was weaning the public away from the idea of actually 1010, something like that, and call it lawful money. Since the banks are part and parcel of the government, part is what they call nowadays the invisible government. I think they can just about do whatever they want to do, but the economic consequences of it can't be hidden. Now, you mentioned, I think, George Washington earlier, maybe that was before we went on the air. Have an interesting quote from him here. He said in a letter to J. Bowen on January the 9th of 1787, quote, "Paper money has had the effect in your state that it will ever have to ruin commerce, oppress the honest, and open the door to every species of fraud and injustice," end quote. So, even back in those days, long before the Federal Reserve, the founding fathers realized the danger of what they call bills of credit, or what we call paper money.
Well, let me ask why my listener should have the ideas that you have, Dr. Hein. Why should my listener care what the writing on the bill says? Why should he care about redeemability and redemption? That sounds like such a big concept to expect my listener, the man of business, the man of action. Why should he care about redemption? What's that about?
That's a good question, Mr. Tulis. I read recently that an enormously high percentage of the American families, if faced with a $100 bill, $100 charge for $1,000, charge for something, would be in trouble because they don't have even $1,000 saved. Now, if you're earning the money and getting a paycheck on Friday and spending it on Saturday, it doesn't matter a bit what redeemability is, because you're going to take that thing out and spend it as soon as you get it. But if you're going to set money aside for your college education for your children, if you think that's not a malign thing to do to the poor kids, if you're going to set that money aside for some future expenditures, then you want to care about redeemability here, or at least what it might be worth, because by the time the kid is old enough for college, that $100 bill might not be enough to buy a loaf of bread. So if you're going to earn it one day and spend it the next, then redeemability, the nature of the money, that's all stuff that you don't care about. And sadly to say, as I mentioned, the majority of American families are in such a situation that they are living more or less from paycheck to paycheck, and for them this is all academic. But when the economy collapses, they might find themselves scratching their heads and wondering what happened. And what happened is that they accepted nothing in return for the something of their work.
And the nothing is the payment either in digital, mostly if they're paid in the official economy, they're paid digitally, and they're paid numbers in their accounts that pretend to be referring to these bills, of course, which pretend to be referring to something held on reserve by the issuer of the bill. That would be maybe gold, mountains of gold, or bags of gold or silver coins. Right, so there's no trail of meaning anymore between the paper and the store of value, the medium of exchange, which in the old days, prior to the 1963 or so, was silver. I think lawful money may refer to silver coins, right? A $1 coin.
Yes, silver has always been lawful money, still is. But that could very well be. But I think the reason that, in a sense, it's quite astonishing, Mr. Tulis. If you went into the shoe store to buy a pair of shoes, and the fellow said, "Well, I have this shoe in your style, and do you like this?" And you say, "Yeah, it's a beautiful shoe." He said, "Okay, that'll be $50." And he hands you the shoe. You say, "But wait a minute. I got 2 feet. I want 2 shoes." So he takes a pen and puts 2 on it, marks 2 on the sole and 2 on the top. He says, "Now you got a pair." You wouldn't. That's so preposterous, you wouldn't believe that. But then you pay for the shoe by giving a piece of paper marked 50. And you say, "Oh, that's $50. Stop and think about it. It's preposterous. You might justify it by saying at one time, well, you could go to the bank, as you mentioned, with those 1914 notes and get the $50 for the $50 bill. But that's long gone. You haven't been able to do that for decades. So it's really remarkable that you would go to the any store and buy, expecting to get what you want, like a pair of shoes is 2, not 1 shoe with a 2 marked on it. And yet you pay for it with a bill that has nothing to it except numbers. And as I say, if you're receiving the money one day and spending it the next, it's all academic and you don't care. But if you want to save some, put some aside to establish a business or something, or set up a trust fund, then of course it matters a great deal, because by the time you go to do that, who knows what the spending power of that bill will be, since that's the only way that the value of so-called money is measured today, in buying power. And the government even has this list of objects that you can buy, the shopping cart, They value the dollar in terms of, pounds of bacon and gallons of milk and this and that and the other thing. But they keep changing the contents of that cart from time to time. And the whole thing is basically a joke. So that's what we meant by the book. You're giving something for nothing.
All work and no pay. This is David Tulis. We're talking with Dr. Paul Hein. His book is All Work and No Pay, not a recent edition, but one worth finding, worth treasuring. Well, Dr. Hein, we're hearing in news reports about how the Fed is trying to maintain the expansion of the economy. It's trying to reach a target of 2% inflation. And when the reader reads these stories by Martin Krutzinger in the AP, he's the boilerplate writer for media news consumers around the country, they think, well, that's, a target of 2% inflation, maintaining momentum, all that sounds good, keeping up the expansion, all that sounds very good, and it's reassuring in a way to hear this kind of discussion. Should the reader be allayed and comforted by this program, Dr. Hein?
Well, I wouldn't. When you say that they're going for a target rate of 2% inflation, that means that your savings, again, this applies only to people who have savings, which apparently is very few, but if you have savings, you're going to lose 2% of their value every year. I mean, that's nothing to be happy about. To say that that's good only because it was worse at a previous time is like saying that, well, better to be diabetic than to have cancer, better to be healthy altogether. And a 2% inflation rate means that you're getting 2% less for your work, every time you get your paycheck. So, no, that's nothing to be happy about. Expansion, they think perhaps, or maybe they want you to think, that by putting more money in the economy, they will stir the economy up. They will build up the economy, and people will buy more, and people will make more. That might have been true at one time, but now we're so awash with the stuff. And since it was all borrowed, the total debt is so monumental that further borrowing is just going to put us deeper into the hole, and there's no way out because all of our money, present-day money, is created as a loan. Where do you get money? Well, when it was gold or silver, you dug it out of the ground. That was a lot of work and effort. Today, you get money because some banker presses the keys on the keyboard, and bingo, that number is added to your account when you make a loan. You have to repay that with interest. Everybody has to repay it with interest. It's like there's only one well in the town, and you lend it to all the townspeople, but they have to return more water than they borrowed. That's obviously not going to work in the long run. So, these cheery notices from the Fed, I think, should be taken with a large grain of salt.
Well, here we are on Cash Friday. We're talking with Dr. Hein, the first Friday of every month. Well, Dr. Hein, banks create money from nothing, as you said, in the lending process. There's according to the Federal Reserve website, there's generally a 3% requirement for deposits. Small banks under $50 million have a 0 reserve requirement for their loans. And I wanted to just ask you about that. How is that where inflation comes from? The fact that banks don't have to have a 100% reserve, but a minimal or non-existent reserve requirement. Is that where inflation comes from?
Yes, I think that is the nature of inflation. I mean, people talk about inflation nowadays. I think by the term they mean rising prices or inflation. But in a sense, the prices aren't rising, but the dollar's decreasing. I mean, an ounce of gold, for example, is an ounce of gold. It's the same as it was in Greek and Roman times as it is today. But the fact that the price of gold has gone up from a few $100s to $1,000 doesn't mean that gold's more valuable. It means that the dollar is less valuable. So, there's no really good way out of it. As long as the banks can create money out of nothing, they'll continue to do so as long as it's profitable. And so far, the total interest collected by banks every day runs into the billions of dollars. So it's very profitable for them.
I have a question
because they spend money too.
This is David Tulis, and we're talking with Dr. Hein, and we are on Cash Friday today. The goal, the notice here from Nooga Radio is that you, my listener, go and draw out $100 from your lender, who is really your bank is really the borrower. The bank borrows from you, the man of credit, the man of account. You have an account there, and so it borrows from you, and it provides you some services at nominal charges, check writing, credit cards. And you can have wire transfers through your lender, and we are raising doubts about this whole process. But in a way, we're at a dead end. What can we do? And we're talking with Dr. Paul Hein, a great skeptic of executive privilege, a great skeptic of the kind of executive government we have today, whether it be in missiles in Syria. He probably is a skeptic about that, but for sure he is a doubter and a naysayer, as I am, a dissenter of our current system of economics. And the question that we have, and we're going to ask Dr. Hein if he can hang on with us for a couple minutes past some important announcements, is who cares and what can we do if we understand this problem of artificial money and inflation and pending collapses in an economy based on confidence, based purely on confidence. What can we do to protect ourselves? Are there some basic principles of understanding about economics, about buying and selling, about substance that we need to have in view? Dr. Hein, can you hang on for a few minutes until we come back and talk with you some more?
Oh, I think I'll manage. Sure.
Okay, we'll be right back. I've got some important messages for you to hear. Remember, you, my listener, you support me, David Tulis, and you support Nooga Radio by patronizing our advertisers. We are a commercial station, and we make our living by serving them and getting you to patronize their operations. Hang on, I've got some messages.
Fox News Talk 1240.
AM 1240 Nooga Radio News. Russell Stroud reporting. Following the launch of 59 cruise missiles at a Syrian government-controlled airbase, former Mayor of Chattanooga Bob Corker releasing a statement saying in part this: I applaud President Trump for taking decisive action following the latest chemical weapons attack. It's critical that Assad knows he will no longer enjoy impunity for his horrific crimes against his own citizens. On the Walnut Street Bridge, a man playing guitar says he was assaulted when a man took a $20 bill out of his busking jar. The man says he was playing his guitar while a black male walked up to him, placed $1 in his jar, but then took $20. When the man confronted him about it, he was shoved. His girlfriend was also shoved, and the man ran away. Police have scoured the area but have not found him yet. A juvenile court administrator of 5 years has been asked to step down by Judge Rob Filia following a domestic assault charge against him. Antonio Petty is claimed to have assaulted his girlfriend at a tire center at Walmart following an altercation with another woman, also claiming to be his girlfriend. The alleged victim in the domestic assault case went to Park Ridge Medical Center for a sprained arm.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Fox News Talk 1240.
I have the best steak selection in town. The name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
Window Depot of Chattanooga. They're locally owned and operated and been around since 2008, installing top-quality vinyl replacement windows. You get the best price and service in the area. Top-quality double pane, energy-efficient windows. They look great and save you money.
Oh, I love to save money.
You'll also save money on your heating and cooling costs. Call 894-0011. 894-0011. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. Sales and installation professionals. You'll get a fantastic job while helping to enhance the value, appearance, comfort, and efficiency of your most valuable asset, your home. Other window providers? No way. Window Depot Chattanooga's windows qualify for the TVA rebate. Sliding doors, gutters, soffits, fascia, garage doors, and other home improvements. If you want to save a ton, call 894-0011. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. WindowDepotChattanooga.com. Window Depot of Chattanooga. Sales and installation professionals.
Are you a plumber looking to improve your career? Ray's Plumbing is looking for you. If you can pass a drug test, have a driver's license, are experienced, and are hardworking, call Ray, 421-6341. 421-6341. 421-6341.
And now to our reporter in the field.
We asked Ray at Ray's Plumbing what's important for homeowners to know.
Some field line systems can cost upwards of $10,000. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road. I would definitely recommend everybody with a septic that is not on county or city sewer to have an inspection done by a qualified professional. It'd be great if nobody did inspections on them for all plumbing companies. That's what we do to make a living. Not to scare anyone, but it should be in the back of your mind. The danger is the field lines failing and costing thousands upon thousands of dollars and tearing your yard up. By preventative maintenance, you're saving yourself a large headache that may displace yourself and your family. That happens more often than you think. The waste is designed to stay in the tank, and that waste will build up over time. Even with treatment, we have to help that waste break down. Ultimately, preventative maintenance is the key that will keep you from spending $5,000 to $10,000 on replacing your septic system. The bottom line is to save yourself money down the road.
Call Ray at Ray's Plumbing, 421-6341, 421-6341.
Oh, he's got bad breath. And once he slobbered. But your dog's teeth are important for his health. The canine dentist at Wolf Fever has an offer. Listen, ultrasonic cleaning, polishing, x-rays, only $135. Ordinarily, you'd pay $175. For a few days, pay only $135. And get $115 in freebies as a thank you. Grooming, boarding at the inn at Wolf Fever. Act this week. Use anytime this year. Floss and rinse now. 344-1913. WolfTeaver.com.
Final expenses, funeral costs, cemetery lots, unpaid medical bills, probate cost, debts. Debts are due and payable upon death of debtor. Will these costs produce a burden and hardship on your loved ones? Who will be responsible? How will they handle them? These costs can total many thousands of dollars, only compounded greater with the grief of losing a family member. A safe and secure way to provide for these costs is with an affordable life insurance from Covenant Group Insurance and Financial Services. Covenant Group is a local company with local agents. Covenant Group still makes house calls. Covenant Group only represents A-rated companies. With many options to offer, Covenant Group can accommodate almost any budget. Great discounts for good health and plans available for impaired risk. Call today for a free, no-obligation consultation in the convenience of your home. Call Steve or Jada at 423-855-8484. Call today, 423-855-8484.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us, Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
Fox News Talk 1240.
After this chilly start, expect lots of sunshine for your Friday. Still on the breezy side, highs later on, upper 50s to near 60. Tonight, clear, cold with a frost likely, lows mid and upper 30s. The weekend, though, looking great. Lots of sun, warmer, highs upper 60s Saturday, upper 70s Sunday. Spring has sprung, so check out Glass Farm Nursery, your tree and shrub replacement headquarters. Glass Farm will bring life back to your lawn and garden. Open daily, closed Sundays. Glass Farm, Highway 11, 4 miles south of Trenton. And I'm Sports Scene 12 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Orr. On AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
On Cash Friday, the man who matters, the man who's got hair on his chest, the virile American, goes to his bank and yanks out. He does something daring, something shocking. It's just shocking. He's going to draw out a piece of paper that has 100 written on it and a mug of the finest American, Ben Franklin, whom he wants to honor. He wants to honor by showing Ben Franklin's face to people with whom he does business. And that's why he has that bill. He's going to pay in cash. He's going to use cash, take part in the scary cash economy where drug dealers are, where criminals exercise their liberties against the state. And he will take part in a no-record economy, a private economy. And in his transactions, he will satisfy the necessities of that transaction. There won't be a bill to pay later from his consumption. No, there's no bill. There's no digital trail. There's no record. There's no printout. There's no detail lines of type on his credit card bill for the transaction that he pays in cash. There's no trail like the flagellum of a spermatozoa trailing after the spermatozoa as it wiggles its way forward toward conception. No, none of that. It's just a satisfying experience of paying with cash. He is being manly. And now this is David Tulis. And to help me understand why that's manly, why using cash is virile and courageous, is Dr. Paul Hein, a retired ophthalmologist and a great writer. He writes periodically online. It's Paul Hein, and he's best known for his being part of the money wars and working to bring back lawful coin and currency to popular use in this country. A war that was humiliated finally by court rulings and the exhaustion of the thousands of participants across the country who said, we just can't win. We just can't make local government even honor the requirement in the Constitution that only gold and silver be understood to be the money of account and the medium of exchange in the payment of fines and taxes and the like. Dr. Hein is the author of one of my favorite books, All Work and No Pay. And here on Cash Friday, he's agreed to explain to me why the use of cash might be more virile and manly than using the credit card. Dr. Hein, what's your take on this idea?
Well, I think it's manly and courageous, and under certain circumstances, Mr. Tulis, highly dangerous. I mean, there have been many people, for instance, who have attempted to buy an airline ticket for cash and quickly found themselves surrounded by FBI agents, and in some cases had cash seized. In other cases, where police stopped people for no particular reason on the highway and discovered they had large quantities of cash in the car. For instance, one man was taking some cash because he was going to buy an automobile. The police seized that. It's assumed that if you have any significant amount of cash, that you're a criminal. You don't get a chance to debate that. I mean, people who have their money taken from them by this confiscation method are without any recourse. They're simply losing it. So having cash, a $100 bill won't probably get you in any trouble. But if you have many of them, you'll be expected to explain where you got them and why you've got them and what you're doing with them. And you may scratch your head and say, hey, it's not worth it. But perhaps that's precisely the reason why it is worth it. You're tickling the giant, so to speak. You're letting them know that you're not fooled. And you're perhaps doing your family and so forth a favor also, and that you're dealing privately with other people, and you're not, as you say, leaving a paper trail that could result in somebody bringing charges against them in the future or making claims against them in the future. It's a way that one man can deal with another strictly privately, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, as you say, that's a very honorable and manly thing to do.
Well, what I like about it is that the transaction is completed. If you have a cash payment, the thing is done, even though legally you could say, well, you can't pay for a debt. You can't pay for a debt with another debt. So in a way, a $1 bill or a $50 bill or a $100 bill does not extinguish the debt legally. It does, in the provisional sense, it does satisfy that transaction, and it completes it. There's no record keeping beyond that. There's no future payment. There's no report filed by the credit bureau about that payment, and now you have to pay the bill, your Amex bill or your Visa bill afterwards. It's a satisfying spending of money.
No, I got a kick out of your saying it's the end of the transaction. Nothing is to follow, because we got a bill yesterday from the hospital. My wife injured herself some time ago, and we finally got a bill yesterday from the hospital. The total charges for, I think, a few hours in the emergency room were like over $5,000, $3,000 just for a CAT scan. And we don't remember exactly when she was there. It's been so long ago. By the time this charge has been processed to all the people who have, offices and cubicles to pour over these things and decide who gets what money and how much is to be deducted, I think our total bill was $23 out of the $5,000 charge. And as I say, we got the bill yesterday, and we had a hard time remembering when it was that she hurt us. That was months ago. So you're right. It's very satisfying if you buy something to be able to pay for it, and that's the end of it. You don't have to wait till the end of the month or wait for several months to get a bill and then scratch your head and say, what was this for? Yeah, there's every advantage in dealing with cash.
Well, I think if we have cash, also we can circulate the faces of our notable American heroes. For example, Ben Franklin, his face is engraved by the Bureau of Engraving and Printing on the green rectangle that has 100s written on it. And of course, he was a polymath. He was an editor and printer, an inventor. He was a diplomat. He has numerous patents, numerous inventions. I don't know if they were patented. And he helped found the U.S. Postal Service with its tremendous efficiencies. And what he represented the colonies in Europe, and was a great writer. His autobiography, except for one very lurid page, his autobiography is a must-read for young people. To show how it is that a young man takes initiative. So in a way, it's good, Dr. Paul Hein, author of All Work and No Pay, to circulate by using cash his face in public. It's good that people be reminded of founding fathers like Ben Franklin, would you not say?
Well, yes, and it would be even nicer if underneath the portrait they had some quotation. Ben Franklin, I can't find this quotation, I knew it at one time, said something about the benefits of paper money, how one piece of paper you can print out money that enables you to buy many pieces of paper or something to that effect. But it would be helpful to put that on there. Alexander Hamilton is on one of the bills, I believe, and he had this to say: to admit an unfunded paper as the sign of value, but not to continue a formal part of the Constitution or even hereafter to be employed, being in its nature pregnant with abuses and liable to be made the engine of imposition and fraud, holding out temptations equally pernicious to the integrity of government and the morals of the people. That's a lot to put on a bill, but still, that's how Alexander Hamilton felt about it.
Yeah,
so when
and
you see
his
picture on
face,
bill, you might think of that.
Yeah, his face is on the piece of green paper that has tens written on it. We call it $10, but we know that a dollar is a measurement of money and a measurement and weight of money. And the rectangles we have, even the one that has 10 on it, is not that. But so Hamilton, for whom our county is named here in Chattanooga, Dr. Hein, we live in Hamilton County, my listener, and he was a big central government man, and was one of the backers of the first central bank the country had before it abolished it, and that was well, I'm forgetting the name, but the first central bank we had, the government's bank.
Yeah. Yes.
And
that didn't last, and the second one was, I think, in 1863 or so, extinguished by what's his name?
By Andrew Jackson.
Andrew Jackson.
Right.
That's one of the lovely things about getting old.
Yeah, and Andrew Jackson's face, by the way, is on the face of the $20 bill. So the bills that we have here, we have Franklin. I'd say Franklin is not necessarily a centralist, but the 50 has Grant, and Grant was, of course, harbinger of big government, defeating the Confederate South with the Union hordes from the north down. And on the $10 bill, we have Hamilton again favoring big government, big money, and one of the founding fathers, defender of the Constitution. And Hamilton knew that if you got the Constitution passed, that we would have, in the end, centralized unitary government, which, of course, we have today. So our county honors him. And should not our listener, Dr. Hein, want to honor the man for whom this county is named, especially since he's promised us big government and is on the $10 bill?
Well, unlike most politicians, he kept his promises. I mean, he was a big government man. He wanted a perpetual debt, and he sure got it. You can't have anything but perpetual debt when all money is an IOU. I think Jefferson's on the 5, isn't he?
No, Lincoln is on the 5. Wrong side, Dr. Hein.
Jefferson is on what?
I don't think Jefferson's on any of the currency.
Isn't he?
Anymore. No, we've got Lincoln. We've got Washington on the 1, Lincoln on the 5. Now, I would put Lincoln, Dr. Hein, I would put him in the category of centralist. In other words, a man who wants big government, centralized, powerful, leadership-type national government.
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
And so you, the listener, if you want to honor great men like that, men whom we love, who are dear figures in the iconography of American life and American patriotism, by all means, make sure that when you draw your $100 out from the bank that you ask for some 5s, so that we can give a little bit of mileage to the whiskers and the blank stare of Abraham Lincoln. Well, Dr. Hein, the bills don't say, they don't make promises like they used to, do they?
No, they sure don't. They don't promise anything. They don't need to. I mean, nobody expects it nowadays. I guess that's kind of sad.
Well, on Wikipedia, in its comments on the $50 bill, points out that in 1966, the language was on the bill as follows: "Will pay to the bearer on demand." Well, that was removed, and now the new bill says, from that time on, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. So there's a kind of promise in the earlier bill, the $50 bill, of action that is expected by the holder of the paper. The person who's holding the paper note, Dr. Hein, can ask that he's the bearer. The bearer can go to the issuer of the note and say, pay me, right? Pay me $50.
Right.
Well, what was $50 before 1966?
I believe that the last time you could redeem money for redeem bills for money was in 1968, as I recall. But I think that had to be with regard to silver certificates, and you could only do it in San Francisco. and you had to have about $100 worth of them. Otherwise, it was hardly worth to fly out there to get a silver dollar. But no, I don't believe there was any sign of tangible real money after 1968, and certainly it was very rare before 1964.
So the language on the bills now, Dr. Hein, in my listener's back pocket, in his billfold, are green rectangles. These are bills. They're sort of pseudo bills. They're ersatz bills. They don't move commerce. They don't actually show a claim and a promise to pay. They simply say, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. Is that an inert statement? Is that a kind of non-operative statement, or does it really mean something? And what does it mean?
Well, legal tender means that you're not committing a crime when you offer it. I guess it's important that it be on there, because if I offered to buy your radio station, for some large sum of money, and all I did was give you a piece of paper saying I owe you this amount of money, and I knew I never had the slightest intention of paying it, I would have gotten your enterprise for nothing. And when if I had given you paper money instead, like a whole bunch of $100 bills, you'd feel satisfied, and I wouldn't be committing a crime, but only because the people who issue it have the good sense to make what they're offering as a legal tender. In other words, they can give you a worthless note, but declare that it's not a crime. When they do it, it's legal to tender or to offer. Whereas if I were to do it, it wouldn't be illegal. In fact, it would be highly criminal. It would be a felony of the most severe type. So,
right, the Secret Service.
The terms legal tender on there are very important.
So if you wrote a piece of paper, Dr. Hein, that had $100 on it and language and looked pretty good, you would have the Secret Service, which is the defender of the integrity of American currency, at your door saying, you, Dr. Paul Hein, author and former ophthalmologist, you cannot possibly write a piece of paper that has $100 on it because you are counterfeiting.
Yes, absolutely. Or check kiting or something similar to that, yes.
Well, what's wrong with that? Is counterfeiting really bad, Dr. Hein?
Well, again, it's a question of if you get it today and spend it tomorrow, it's okay. I mean, in a sense, counterfeiting, if you have a neighbor who's printing up $100 bills in his basement, he's probably doing the public a favor, and he should be regarded with some honor and distinction because his money does not come into circulation as a loan. If you get a $100 bill from the bank, it means that somebody at some point borrowed that $100, and so the bank ends up with that number in its accounts, and you can get a $100 bill for it. But all of our money comes into existence as a loan, except about 5% that the banks spend on themselves, according to someone at the St. Louis Fed who wrote me about it. But the counterfeiter's money does not enter circulation as a loan. So at least he's sparing the public the burden of interest, which at the present time is horrendous.
But the evil of the counterfeiter is that he's accruing all this value to himself. He can print out $100 bills in his computer and printer, not of good quality, of course, as the real ones. And the evil is that he is enriching himself. He's going to Walmart, buying car parts, buying tires, buying perfume for his wife, buying dog food and lawn chairs and the like. And that's an evil because he's enriching himself, even though we would have to admit he's not hurting anybody else any more than the Federal Reserve System is.
No, I mean, he could take the fellow at Walmart could take those counterfeit bills and use them to buy stuff too. The only thing, the big reason he's not allowed to do it is because the people who are doing it don't want any competition, obviously. If everybody nowadays with printers as sophisticated as they are, if everybody was printing up their own money, the economy would collapse much, much faster than it's doing now. So the legal tender laws are to more or less separate the guys who are allowed to get away with it from those who aren't. So the counterfeiter is a crime, committing a crime like most crimes because they say it is a crime. It's not doing society any more harm than the stuff that's being printed now.
Well, Dr. Hein, I do thank you for joining me here at Nooga Radio on the David Tulis program.
It's been my pleasure.
Thank you. Dr. Paul Hein is an author and an ophthalmologist and has a very clear view on our dilemma here in Chattanooga, here in Hamilton County. And this is David Tulis, and we're trying to figure out the way out. And I want to ask you and suggest in the moment I've got left before I've got some terrific and very important commercial messages for you. What can we do about this problem? And it's really kind of a short answer here, but I would suggest the local economy solution, which is liquidity. And by that, I would say divest national and invest local. That's point one. And number two would be avoiding debt entirely. In other words, don't borrow. The man who borrows is not a mobile man. He can't act quickly. He can't work. He's always hesitating. He's always living in fear. Remember Will Rogers, who said once, "You can't break a man that don't borrow." Well, if you don't borrow, you're denying yourself something. You are avoiding an obligation, and you're also denying yourself some benefit or pleasure or some necessity that you have now. So the second point would be getting out of debt, and because if you have no debts, you are able to move. You're able to take risks. You're able to be bold. If you're a debtor, it's much harder to do anything bold or courageous or to take a risk. Why? Because you've got the claim of the creditor always to be paid in the month or in the quarter, and you are unwilling to take the risk. And most of our people here in Hamilton County, I'd say, maybe you the listener accepted, have much personal debt accrued by credit card. And many people fund their businesses on credit cards. Think for a second about having a business. If you have a business that grows organically like mine, it's slow growth, it's very slow growth, but not borrowing, we are able to outlast the great media empires that are choked with debt. There are radio companies, national radio companies, that have $2 billion in obligations. That is not sustainable. And so people like me, small now perhaps, at least in our business enterprise, we're small but with a giant influence, of course, right here. Thanks to you, my listener, we're here on the public airwaves, and also airing our analysis at Nooganomics.com, our chief sponsor. What we need to have, maybe as point three in the way of advice, are communities where there's no debt burden, where people live liquid, they live modestly, and they pay for everything they use. They use the envelope system, and that's why cash is important, because if you want to avoid debt and avoid entangling yourself in the tapeworm economy, right? Because that's what's out there, is the tapeworm economy. The national economy is tapeworm. The local economy, if God ordains and if God gives grace, is the more liquid economy, maybe the cash economy. Even using the Fed's lawful and wonderful and beautiful engraved messages on green paper, even using them, we can still have an honest local economy. And hopefully over time there'll be innovations in means of currency, mediums of exchange, in the sharing economy. There are many prospects ahead where, thanks to computing power, thanks to server power, we can have local economies that have local money, right? Local lawful money in the future. Maybe better than Bitcoin. I think the Bitcoin tease is not sound. It makes the same mistakes that fiat currency people are making, and that is they're issuing something based on nothing. Same problem. Well, this is David Tulis. We're looking for solutions here in Chattanooga. And I do thank you for giving me just a couple minutes of your time. The David Tulis Show, David Tulis. Find me at Nooganomics.com. Subscribe to Nooganomics.com. It's free. David Tulis.
Hot News Talk 1240.
You have to file your 1040 now. We will handle it for you now. Liberty Tax Service will snip out every deduction, every benefit. Liberty Tax Service now. Red Bank, Saudi Daisy, Dayton. Liberty Tax Service now.
Competent, kind, caring, knowledgeable, experienced, great listener, great negotiator, in touch, accessible. If these are the characteristics you want and need in a realtor, you want and need Thomas DeMoss of Keller Williams Realty. Thomas is a very gifted realtor who puts the client's needs first. Whether you're buying or selling a home, Thomas is the realtor of choice. Thomas will help and guide you through each step of this very important process. For many of us, the purchase of a home is one of our largest investments and most important family and financial decision. Let Thomas use his 10 years of experience in the Chattanooga real estate market to give you the advantage you need when buying or selling a home. Buying a house? Thomas can help you navigate the emotional and somewhat anxious process of buying a home. For those of you who want to sell a house, Thomas uses his marketing and negotiating experience to help you sell your home for top dollar. Thomas is a local resident raising his family here in Hamilton County. He knows the area very well. For many agents, real estate is a job. With Thomas DeMoss, it's a passion and what he loves to do. Call Thomas today for a no-obligation consultation. He makes the process as simple as possible. Call 423-364-0028 and visit his website, northriverpropertygroup.com.
Need a tiller to get things going for the spring? Spiff up your porch, maybe your deck? Come on by and get a pressure washer at Action Rental. Family in town, need some tables and chairs for an event? Come on by and see us. Action Rental. This is Dan at Action Rental on Lee Highway. Come by and see me. Action Rentals.
Are you shovel ready to build a house, but you're not a builder? Are you shovel ready? Michael's Homes is ready to bulldoze its way to a solution for you. You have ideas on what you want in a house, but you're looking for someone to bring your ideas into a plan and turn your plan into a house. Michael's Homes, custom builder. Michael's Homes has lots available at a new subdivision, River Bay Estates, that's Harrison. Maybe River Watch in Saudi Daisy. Choices galore, lots, houses, beautiful homes all over Chattanooga. The Canyons, Hickson, Crystal Brook, Appleton. Drive in, take a look, consult with us. We build on your lot or ours. Homes-Chattanooga.com.
Call 423-413-9929.
I have the best steak selection in town. Name of the business is Don's Meat Shop, and I'm Donnie Raines. Just ask for Donnie. I make over 20 different types of sausages. Most of them are great for grilling. We have the best selection, best quality. We have the hard-to-find items. Don's Meat Shop.
If I'm the city's most intelligent man, it's because I take 2 shots of Mind Enhancement Complex every day. Nature's Finest keeps me stocked with my mainstay, Formula 4. That's where I start. Formula 4.